Hi, I'm Jeanette Keynes from Jewelry Arts Inc. We're in day 3, gemstones. So gemology is an enormous topic, and I by no means am going to try to teach you all about gemstones today. But I'm going to show you a few things that you might not know, and also just some delicious goodies to look at and play with. I can definitely say, as a handmade jewelry artist, that stones inspire me. And if for any reason I ever get stuck with a project and it's just like I'm not feeling it and it's whatever, I just go over and look at another stone, and then I'm like, oh, hello, pretty. What do you want to be when you grow up? It really is almost like you fall in love with it. You know, it's like a little romance. And I feel like the stones tell me what they want. Now, don't get me wrong, if someone who likes really minimalist jewelry was to buy a stone, maybe that stone would tell them something different than they tell me. But for me, I go, oh, I know what you want to be. You want to be a ring, or you want to be this or that or the other thing. So the important difference between mass-produced jewelry and handmade jewelry is your freedom of choice. When I make a beautiful piece, I need 1 stone or 5 stones, a few stones. Mass-produced jewelry can't put a stone in a piece unless they've got, I don't know, 1,000, 10,000 of them exactly the same. So many gemstones in the world, you're just not going to find them in that quantity. You know what I mean? With the same color and the same cut and, all that kind of thing. So making handmade jewelry just makes you free. All you need is to find something beautiful that inspires you instead of being always constricted by like, oh no, it's not around, or oh no, I don't have 10 million more of them. So I think, inherently handmade jewelry is always going to be more interesting because you just don't have those kind of constraints.
Put a period on that sentence.
Yeah, right?
They're like, and how? You said it.
Or it's like, that's a New York version of like, yeah, that's right. Every piece of jewelry that you make when you're doing handmade, it's couture. I'm going to start with the stone that really inspires me. I'm going to make my setting, and I'm going to make everything to fit it exactly and to complement it, and hopefully to, sing at the end, which is what I'm looking for. And that just gives me enormous creative freedom, which is something that you just can't get with mass-produced stuff. And don't get me wrong, when I say mass-produced, I don't mean like, don't get me wrong, when I say mass-produced, there's plenty of beautiful jewelry that's mass-produced, but it's just, you're getting something that's just like what thousands and thousands of other people have. Now, that's not always the end of the world, and you may love it, but I think handmade is like having an artist paint you a painting for you in your house, and something that's really going to touch your heart. It's just different. Exactly right. So because I don't need enormous quantities of any certain stone, I have all this flexibility. So if I say sapphire, I think almost anyone would just be like, blue. Sapphire is blue. But guess what? Sapphire comes in a ton of colors. It's just not as common. So you may not be able to get like 5 million of them like you can for the blue ones. Because, for example, like this is a blue sapphire bead, which is, more of a deep blue, what you might be expecting to see. But you see this beautiful orange here? That's sapphire. You see this beautiful lavender color here? That's also sapphire. You see these right here? That's sapphire. So there's so much more. And also, just so you know, ruby and sapphire is the same stone. It's corundum, it's identical. It's just, if it's blue, they call it sapphire. If it's red, they call it ruby. If generally the other colors, the like purple and green and orange or whatever, they're usually called fancy sapphires, which, who doesn't want to be fancy? I think that's just a beautiful name. But so there's so much more diversity and interesting things available to you as a handmade artist and as the person who buys handmade art. You can get something no one else is going to have, which I think is a very special thing. And especially as the world becomes more and more and more just like mass-produced and dreary in that way, having a one-of-a-kind piece of art that you can wear, it makes you feel like a badass, Also, this is my compass ring, which I'm very attached to. You see this beautiful blue stone in the middle? It's very refractive, very sparkly, gorgeous. This is a stone called a zircon. It is not a cubic zirconia, which is an artificial gemstone. It is a natural gemstone. It's mined mainly in Australia. Now, the thing about zircon is it has a shitty name, because most people who don't know a lot about jewelry, if they hear zircon, they think cubic zirconia, they think fake and it's no good and it's cheap or whatever. So only people that really know gemstones use zircons. They're unbelievably beautiful. They actually have a higher refractive index than diamonds do. Refractive index is just basically, that rainbow, that dispersion, the light goes in and it just sparkles, which is something, we're all looking for in our life and our gemstones. So that's another example of a stone. Like, you're never going to see a mass-produced ring with a zircon in it. It's just not going to happen. It has a branding issue. But I love them. They're incredibly gorgeous, and I use them all the time. Another stone that you may not have heard of before, depends on what a jewelry insider you are, is spinel. Now, spinel is available in all kinds of gorgeous colors. Here's a juicy spinel close-up to make you drool. These right here are actually the crystals. Just as they come out of the earth, they grow in the same kind of crystal formation as diamonds do. This beautiful octahedral, so it's like a little pyramid on top of each other. And spinel comes in red and pink, all kinds of different shades, because like these are spinels, which are pretty red with a little pink. These are spinels also right here. I mean, the colors and the variety, the diversity that you can get in gemstones is just like, it could make my little brain explode. And it's funny, when I was laying all this out, I was like, okay, we're going to talk about gemstones, and I'm going to get out a few different samples and a few things. It's like we're just kind of like, we were a little mesmerized. Also, like a stone like garnet, right? If you've heard about garnet, you might think of garnet as red, like this beautiful pair of cabochons. Cabochon just means it's more of an ancient cut. It's rounded without the little facets in it, right? So that's garnet right there. But guess what? That's garnet too. Mandarin garnet, that beautiful orange. You see this hot, sexy green right there? Savarite garnet. There are so many colors and cuts and shapes of things that you are completely missing out on if all you ever do is get mass-produced jewelry. So this little collection I have here, I mean, this is just scratching the surface. Like, you see this gorgeous Tahitian pearl right there? Ridiculous. Gorgeous amethyst. Stones like chrysoberyl that maybe you've never heard of or seen before. This is another zircon right here. You see how unbelievably like sparkly and gorgeous that is? Love them. I like hoard these. You don't see them, you don't get them very often. They're not very common. So basically whenever I find them, I gather them and hold them. Now also right here, of all these are all, turquoise, this is all natural gemstones. Gemstone treatments have been going around since the very beginning of time to make stones look better. A lot of times it's basically just heating in an oven. I mean, they've been doing that to sapphires for like thousands and thousands of years. They're always developing new things to enhance stones, and there's nothing wrong with an enhanced stone as long as it's disclosed. So in other words, if they do something to it, like for example, emeralds, since the beginning of time, they're oiled because emeralds tend to have lots of those little rutiles, like those little cracks. And they use a special oil, which basically makes them a little less noticeable, and it looks better. And they've been doing that literally since the beginning of time. Nothing wrong with it as long as you understand what they've done to the stone. So pretty much all parts of the earth and the ocean create unbelievably gorgeous gemstones. Sometimes it's great to just keep them in their crystal form, something like that. I mean, gemstones can be cut and polished, but, in their completely natural form can be amazing. I mean, that's literally just comes out of the earth. They pretty much broke that off and there it is. That's gorgeous. So then there's something else to consider when you're thinking about gemstones, which is lab-created gemstones. Now, there's a difference between like imitation gemstones and cubic zirconia. Like imitation gemstones are usually like plastic or glass or some kind of weird substance like that. But then there's also something called lab created gems, where they are the identical composition of a gemstone, but they're just grown in a lab. Now, these stones right here, you see these lovely babies right here? These little white ones. So I had them cut out of lab created sapphire. Now, normally when you get the lab created sapphire, the color is like too even. You know what I mean? It's like too perfect and your eye just goes, oh no, they're no good. It depends on how they're cut, you know what I mean, and how they're presented. But a lot of times it's the color that sort of gives it away, that it almost is too perfect. And therefore you're like, wait, what's happening there? But white sapphire, which is another way that you find sapphire, is beautiful, really sparkly, super durable. So we've been working on, we're always doing tons of research projects here because, you know, there's so many interesting things to study and learn. And one of the things that we've been researching is ancient diamond cutting. Now, as fashions changed in diamonds, they would take all the diamonds in existing pieces and they would recut them. So there's very, very few existing diamonds with those ancient diamond cuts. You may have heard of like an old mine cut, you know, that's only from maybe about like, 100 years ago or something like that. But for example, in the Renaissance, they had all kinds of gorgeous cuts that you can barely see it in a museum because none of them are left, and nobody cuts them that way today. So one of those cuts is this one you're looking at right here. This is a Renaissance era cut. And hopefully you can see those beautiful light effects. Basically, no one has seen that cut since the Renaissance. There are only a couple in existence. The only ones I know of are in this goblet in Vienna, which I have sadly never had the chance to see myself. But in doing research and reading about it, we were able to sort of extrapolate from how they described it and do a drawing so that I could have a cutter cut them. So there are so many beautiful things that you can do when you're not constrained by, oh, but I need it to be really common and I need to be able to find a whole bunch of them and I need it to be something that just generally appeals to, you know, everyone. You can do beautiful, amazing, interesting things. Now, not everybody wants lab created gems, but lab created is in a certain way. It is kind of the wave of the future. I don't think natural gemstones should or are going anywhere, but just like with any mining, it's, it has a lot of repercussions for the earth. And, things like diamonds, there's an enormous amount of marketing and branding that go into the prices of diamonds. Now, don't get me wrong, I adore diamonds. I'm a junkie for them. Guilty as charged. But the truth is that their price is artificially inflated. And there are a lot of people that they may want something beautiful and sparkly, but it's not about a diamond. There are conflict, there's an enormous amount of political and social upheaval that comes around the exchange of valuable goods. Now, lab created gems can be a way to really skirt that whole issue, because they're grown in a lab. You don't have any of the same ethical issues. And to the best of my knowledge, there's not any really profound issues with how they're made, in the sense of, dangerous runoff or radiation or, you know what I'm saying, anything like that. So for people that are, concerned about the earth, it's another way to be able to enjoy a gemstone. Like I said, sapphire, super durable, without worrying about the repercussions for the earth. So I feel like, I don't think they take the place of quote unquote natural gemstones, but I do think it's really a viable alternative for people, price wise, because it's much less expensive. And like I said, it's a little easier on the earth. So I feel like it's all good. You know what I mean? It's like, what's not to like about any of it? And having choices is always a really good thing. So talking about gemstone treatments, and I think there's sort of a pejorative feeling that comes with that, but a lot of times they're truly necessary. Like, for example, this is, look at that turquoise. Unbelievable. That's from the Sleeping Beauty mine, which is now closed, by the way. So if you ever find any Sleeping Beauty turquoise, buy it. They're not digging up any more of that. But you see the beautiful shine. Now, it's almost every turquoise that you're ever going to see, you know, or out in the world has been treated, it's been sealed, basically. You want them to do that. You know, you might be like, oh no, I want untreated turquoise. Like, no, you don't. Turquoise is super, super porous. Okay. So if you use untreated, unsealed turquoise, now you don't really have to ask for that because I mean, pretty much you're buying turquoise, you know, it's been treated. But we had a student who had gone out to a mine. She got some beautiful turquoise, but that had not gone through like the supply chain. Do you know what I mean? And so we were like, oh, great. And we're making and we're setting. And normally to pick stones up in and out of their settings when we're making them, we just use a little bit of like red sticky wax. So as we always do, I like took the wax and went, you know, put it on top. And when we took the wax off, you could actually see like a shadow of the wax and it wouldn't wipe off. It had actually like penetrated the turquoise a little bit. So the student was horrified. I was horrified because I've never seen that. And as a teacher, ultimately, whatever happens is my fucking problem. You know what I mean? Like, if there's a problem, I have to fix it. So what I actually did was I repolished the top of it and just removed a tiny bit, brought it back to a shine. You know, we have lapidary wheels and I won't get into the whole nitty gritty of that. But to me, that's an example of don't necessarily think of a gem treatment as like a bad thing. Oh, like it's not as good or whatever, because there are things that they do that are important and necessary. So keep that in mind. So we were actually just talking off camera about birthstones a little bit. Alexis was saying like, well, I never really liked my birthstones that much. And like, here's the thing. If you like your birthstone, go nuts and use it. But remember, birthstones, they just like invented that stuff in the last like 100 years or so. Like if you like it and it means something to you, great, use it. But by no means feel like you're like, oh, well, but you know, I'm an emerald, you know, I'm a May baby, so I'm emerald and green isn't really for me. Like they just came up with that stuff like literally in the last 100 years. So just choose what makes you happy. So, I mean, I have just scratched the surface when it comes to gemstones. I could talk with you all day and all night and show you a million beautiful things, but I will restrain myself and just try to give you a few highlights. Just another thing that I wanted to show you, like tourmaline. You know, if you think like, oh, watermelon tourmaline, or I know what a tourmaline looks like this is a bicolor tourmaline right here, green and pink, beautiful, beautiful, right? Guess what? You see this right here? That's a tourmaline also. This is a tourmaline also, this like beautiful sort of like peachy color. There is like every shade under the sun. There's so much to explore with gemstones. So just please don't feel constricted by the things that you know well or that, you know, like that you've seen before. There's so much out there waiting for you. Thanks for joining me for Jewelry Week. Jewelry Week is when the whole world kind of fits into my idea of the universe. So I love it. I'll see you all tomorrow and we're going to talk about design.